Welcome to Chapter 12 of Storming Babylon. In this chapter, we will continue to explore the exciting and action-packed world of this thrilling book. We hope you are enjoying the story so far and are eager to find out what happens next. As we delve deeper into the plot, we encourage you to immerse yourself in the exciting events that unfold. From thrilling action scenes to heart-pumping moments of suspense, Storming Babylon is sure to keep you on the edge of your seat. We appreciate your support and hope that you continue to enjoy the journey we have in store for you. Thank you for enjoying the story, and we look forward to sharing more with you in the upcoming chapters. Chapter 13, Chinatown.
It was a short cab ride and a long walk through Chinatown. About 3 sandwiches by Jackie's reckoning, and half a pack of smokes by Dom's. At last, Dom looked up from his notepad to find himself standing in front of a busy alley in the heart of the district. The entire area was decked out with red banners, lanterns, golden curtains, and people dressed in all the colors of the rainbow. It would have been garish by city standards, but the vibrant colors of the buildings and people made it seem like a different world. The rain had let up a little, and most people had ditched their parasols for their traditional hairstyles and clothing. The shop's name was in Chinese, with letters on an octagonal sign perched above the entrance. Dom and Jackie walked into the parlor, tripping a loud bell attached to the door. The place looked like part of some pirate ship from a bygone era with its dark wood planks and black iron fixtures. The place was dark, lit only by a pair of weak paper lanterns with red frames. It smelled of mildew and a fresh wood finish. A single long counter cut the room in half, adorned by a hinged extension of the counter, giving it the feel of an old-world bar. It was covered in a wild assortment of tiny jars, pouches, and herbs all hung or sitting on small displays. Beneath a lantern by the wall, incense bled a trail of lazy smoke. Its strange scent gave some relief to the effects of the odorous room. Jackie was immediately at the counter futzing with the various items. Dom stole the moment to give the room a once-over. A glint caught his wandering eye, stuck between 2 floorboards. He bent down to inspect it, finding a small imperial jade bead. He crouched to get a better look at the bauble. Jackie almost fell on his rump when a man in reading spectacles and a fancy red outfit fluttered out from an opening behind the counter.
"I can help you, sir,"
he sang with his unplaceable accent. Dom shot upright and composed himself, looking the new arrival up and down.
"Just looking,"
he started, looking to gauge the man's response. The man in red opened the hinged countertop and slid into the parlor. He stopped in front of the crowded counter as he responded.
"You misunderstand. I will help you."
"Oh really? How's that?"
Dom was getting a bad feeling about this encounter. Something in his brain was telling him he was missing something.
"You work for me now. Your Lowenstein is no longer to be considered."
The man could not prevent a cat-like smile from spreading beneath his thin mustache.
"Who says I work for Stein?"
Dom was suddenly glad he had tucked the 1911 into his belt, hidden under his coat. He could almost feel himself reaching for it. He could also feel eyes on him, from someone other than the man in red. The man spoke with the air of an emperor.
"You have followed the late Dr. Artem Kozlov here. This place is like a fly trap catching all of Stein's flies that come buzzing. You will not lie to see my plans for your master, but you concern me in death."
Dom remembered what he missed. When investigating dangerous places, always look up. He shot a glance above him and spotted 2 horrific gentlemen attached to the ceiling by long, razor-sharp talons sprouting from their hands and feet. They could have easily caused Kozlov's wounds. Each dressed like other people around Chinatown but had yellowed papers covered in an unreadable script nailed to their foreheads. They looked like the dead, but their eyes betrayed their predatory nature. The man in red watched Dom's revelation and sighed.
"We'll get information from your rotting corpses."
He snapped his fingers. On cue, the yellowed papers burned away and the 2 creatures fell toward Dom. Jackie was the first to respond, pulling Dom out of harm's way with extended arms. A long claw slit a small cut down Dom's cheek, causing the skin around the wound to wrinkle and age far more than the rest of his face. Dom howled in pain as he pulled his pistol out, shoes skidding across the uneven wood. Talons dug deep into the wood floor where he had just been, all their faces locked on Dom. The pistol aimed square at the first zombie thing and tore a hole in the flesh between the creature's eyes with a hearty and familiar kick and bark. It didn't even flinch. Jackie's face holes formed an expression of genuine surprise.
Boss? I thought it would kill zombies.
Yeah, Jackie, I thought the same thing.
The things were damn fast, like cats on cocaine. They pulled free from the floor and sent splinters flying. The same motion used to free their elongated black talons was used to propel them toward Dom, their mouths agape with black gums and shark-like eyes. Jackie took a big sniff as he put Dom down.
Hey boss, don't let them touch you. Their mitts smell like magic at that Happy Trails place.
Dom ducked a swipe from a black claw, before leaping out of the way of a gutting stab from another and crashing into a wall.
What, Jackie?
Jackie had used his extended vines to ensnare the other monster and was struggling with it as it clawed and chewed its way through each vine wrapped around it.
Their hands, boss. The claws of theirs. They're leaking some of that bad juju.
Jackie winced, biting his long vines and snapping them off. The creature's contact started doing substantial damage to his severed vines, causing them to wither and rot. Dom narrowly avoided a gelding and decapitation before leaping into a roll to cross the room. He could hear the man in red cackling at their plight. He needed space to catch his breath and aim his gun. Jackie used a perfectly timed moment to trip Dom's pursuer, giving his partner the time he needed. Dom leaped up and blasted away at the creatures and their master. The things appeared nonplussed by their new diet of lead. The man took a leg hit and quickly retreated over the counter, scattering its trinkets and decorations everywhere as he careened through them and out of view.
With compliments from my client that your goons jumped this morning.
Dom called after the man. The zombies rushed forward. The gun was empty. It was time to go. Dom grabbed Jackie by the collar and tucked him under his arm like a football, before booting the alley door open and charging out. Bounding down the alley seemed like a smart plan until both zombies shot out the broken door, crushing everything unfortunate enough to get underfoot in their mad dash to get hold of their prey. A woman from a balcony above them screamed, causing both zombies to stop and look in her direction for a second. She raised a ceramic bowl over her head and threw it as hard as she could at the creatures. She must have come to the window after the gunshots, only to find monsters in her alley. Dom and Jackie sprinted for their lives to a three-way junction. He could hear cars going, some 10 yards away. However, he feared what would happen if he ran toward people with these zombies hot on his trail. However, when Dom spared a glance behind him, the zombies were nowhere to be seen. Dom looked back to see both creatures had stopped dead in their tracks, growling like rabid dogs while crouched over the broken jar. They seemed to be gingerly moving clay fragments aside and sorting the rice grains to count each one. Dom jerked suddenly when an older woman tugged his sleeve to get his attention.
Come quickly. Now.
Jackie started to whine about not trusting strangers and about getting pulled apart for some Chinese soup. Dom was too lost to argue and followed the woman as she ran into a shop across the street. The zombies stood ready to continue their pursuit, done counting the rice. Both heads turned toward where Dom was. Unable to precisely locate their prey, they ran headlong into a wall, scratching and clawing, before stopping briefly. The first zombie pressed claws to the wood, beginning to scale the wooden wall. The people in the shop looked terrified. The woman reassured them in their native language, as the sound of two bodies falling in front of the store filled the busy night. Bones broke, joints started popping out of sockets, but both zombies rose from the ground, stalking forward toward the detective again. A woman shoved Dom out of the doorway, holding a large silver mirror up toward the creatures. The zombies started to shriek, hurting the ears and shanking the souls of all who were near enough to hear. The woman held the hand of the other shop owner for a moment and was off again. The woman closed the door and took one deep breath, before swiftly moving toward the back of the tightly packed trinket shop. She opened the door to the back room and said,
Come. We must go.
The trio wound their way through the back room, out into an adjoining alley, then through another door. They emerged in another storage room of yet another trinket shop. Dom finally worked up the nerve to ask,
How did you know any of that would work?
Jiangshi cannot stand their reflection. It terrifies them.
she said as she drew a key from a shopkeep apron wound around her waist.
Jiang what?
The detective and Pumpkin asked in unison. The women pressed on after unlocking the door and moved them all into a large shop filled with people crafting large Chinese dragons. She spoke a few brief words in Chinese, which caused workers to block the door the group had just gone through.
Jiangshi. The returned dead.
They crossed another busy street and headed down an alley full of hanging red and gold fabrics. Each had to push aside the various colored swaths of fabric as they jogged through. Jackie piped up.
Zombies. Actual rotten to the core zombies. That's kind of neat.
The woman scolded Jackie as she pressed on.
Not neat, gourd child. Deadly. Made by ritualistic sacrifice and black magic. Made by bad men who study the old ways. Dark arts. Grandmothers tell stories of men who use paper wards to control them, and use Jiangshi to kill.
Dom's turned to pipe up.
The zombies are controlled by yellow paper.
The woman cursed under her breath and entered an enormous temple. She paid a coin to a young man standing with a wicked-looking pole weapon, tipped with a flat metal blade. Walking up to the center of the room, she spun a wooden prayer wheel on her way through.
No, not control. The paper keeps them calm until unleashed on the enemy. Ward was made on yellow paper and drawn in the blood of a chicken. Wards protect the controller. Once a person is marked, Jiangshi will not stop until they are dead.
She stopped long enough to speak to a monk in the temple. He motioned for others to assist in opening a door to a cleverly hidden room behind silk and cotton drapes.
How do we stop them?
Both detectives asked. The woman entered an octagonal chamber covered entirely in hexagrammic wards, candles, and lit incense. She took a well-earned breath before replying.
You must destroy them.
How do we do that?
Exclaimed Jackie, giddy with all the new information.
With a weapon forged by a moonlit coin.
She replied with narrowed eyes.
What is?
Dom just realized.
You're talking to Jackie. You can see him as he is.
The woman looked at Dom as if he had said something idiotic.
Yes. Spirit guardians cannot be missed by eyes such as mine.
Dom, a bit flustered, tried to contain his sudden oncoming headache with his free hand. The other had been occupied by the pistol for the entirety of their pursuit and forgotten.
Who the hell are you, lady?
She turned on her heels, slapping Dom hard enough to roll his thoughts away to nothing. He hadn't been slapped that hard since childhood.
I have no court with the lower realms. I am offended at your accusation that I consorted with hell.
Dom put his hands up in self-defense. He must have said something offensive, or maybe she wasn't up to date on local chatter. Either way, he didn't want to get slapped again.
Sorry, Lady Mayam.
He shook his head, realizing just how ridiculous he looked, and made an effort to regain his balance.
Who are you? How can you see Jackie? More so, how are you connected to those Jengas or whatever they are back there?
He swung his pistol behind him and toward the tunnel they had fled through for emphasis. She moved about the room making minor adjustments to the candles before she replied.
Dai Yu Zhao. You will call me Madame Zhao. I make and serve tea locally. I come from a long line of spirit hunters and mystics from my homeland.
She turned to face him with a stern expression written across her face.
You are rude for asking before giving your name. You instead give the name of your spirit guardian.
Chapter 13 Chinatown.
Dom rubbed the back of his head uneasily. This woman knew how to throw a man off balance. She radiated a kind of matriarchal dominance with a commanding voice that seemed to make everything she did and said final. It didn't help that the itch in the back of his mind thought she could easily wipe the floor with him if she chose to. She seemed more than a little deadly and prepared to give demonstrations if provoked. At least she seemed to be on his side for now. He would have to file Chinese tea shop owners as a potential threat to his health when he returned to his office.
Name's Dom. I'm a gumshoe. Jackie is my partner. Thanks, by the way, for getting our butts out of there.
She seemed satisfied by his response and softened a bit. She looked Dom over before snatching his stubbly chin in her iron grip. Her dark eyes analyzed every inch of his face, taking extra time on the cut across his cheek.
You were cut during a fight? Jiangshi drains the life out of victims. Use blades, claws, and sharp metal to stab and feed. Afterward, the bodies rot and turn black. They need to hold victims for a long time. Life drains out slowly. Small cuts only mark you, make you easy to find, make you sick.
Even though the small cut was causing him pain, Dom could only shudder at the thought of what would have happened if Jackie had not saved him. Dom finally had a chance to rally his thoughts and felt his detective's mind return.
You said we needed a weapon made from a moonlit coin. Any practical lingo for that, or is it some kind of relic?
The woman raised a single eyebrow.
Legend says you need a special knife or sword to harm Jiangshi. Other tools can cut through and maim but never stop. Moonlit coins come from the pockets of wanderers. People who have no home and sleep under the stars. The power contained in them is needed to end these creatures.
Madame Zhao spoke softly this time. As she did, she started plucking various dusty compounds from the jars and rubbed them carefully into her palm. Jackie clarified.
You mean bums, homeless people? Vagrants, that beg for change? Panhandlers?
She nodded as she completed her concoction. She approached Dom, satisfied it was mixed correctly.
Yes. Your people do not treat them as well as ours back home. But as you say, you can find some of these bums to lend you the coin of their own free will. Then they should suffice.
Can it be something other than a sword? Dom had never taken to blades. Guns were more to his liking.
The woman nodded.
I was told a man used an arrow with a head made of a coin to kill Jiangshi as they attacked the Great Wall. It needs to be sharp to stab.
Dom reached back to his pistol, still tucked away behind him. If projectiles still fit the bill, it gave him a semblance of hope. Jackie was lost in continuing to state numerous other descriptors for the city's homeless population. His ramblings were ignored by the mortals in the room. Being ignored seemed to make him more emphatic with his discussion. Now he began counting on his 15 recently regenerated vine fingers. With each new title uttered, his face twisted further from effort, and a new finger would form a new viney appendage, causing his hands to look like pumpkin briars instead of hands. While he talked, he walked about the room, letting a few sneaky vines probe the various jars for potential sandwich cash. The woman surprised Dom when she ran her finger along the cut on his cheek. It deposited a pungent smell.
They have marked you. Now they can follow you to the ends of the earth. This will ease pain and obscure the mark they placed. It is temporary, though. Soon the pain will get worse. You will need to heal properly.
Dom stood stiffly as the woman made some strange marking on his forehead. She stepped back to examine her work, and when she found it to her satisfaction, she gave a brief nod.
This will prevent them from seeing you, for a time. Also, people around here will avoid you like a cold death.
Dom jabbed a thumb over to Jackie.
Is he going to need any of this hocus pocus?
Zhao looked over at Jackie.
No. Jiangshi has no court with spirit guardians and can only feed on mortals. Go now, Dom Gumshoe. Find the coin and forge the weapon. Meet back here when the task is complete.